Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. In this update, we are really going to need to watch the deep tropics of the Atlantic as well as the Western Atlantic for the potential for tropical development in the next 2 to 3 weeks as we have tropical waves that are coming off of Africa. While these don't look to develop in the short term, they could develop once they get into the Bahamas as well as off the coast of the southeastern United States in the next 7 to 10 to perhaps 15 days. So in this update, we will be breaking down all those details on where and when these waves will actually develop. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do find these tropical weather outlook and discussions very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification icon to get all of my daily tropical weather updates, including live stream tropical coverage before a tropical storm or hurricane makes landfall within 24 to 36 hours in any given location, such as the United States, the Bahamas, including for Puerto Rico, as well as the Caribbean. Hit the like button and share this video with their family and friends on social media. So here's a look at the very latest GOES-19 true color visible satellite imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There's a link in the description below this video. And as we clearly take a look at this tropical wave right here that moved off of Africa yesterday, while it looks very healthy and impressive, there is definitely a lot of dry air that moved off of Africa or is currently doing so with a very strong easterly African jet located to the north of the system. And this is why the system is going to struggle over the next 3 to 6 days as it generally moves off towards the west-northwest at about 10 to 15 miles per hour. But that doesn't mean it won't develop. Some of the models are already indicating that there could be an opportunity of tropical development once this gets into the Bahamas off the southeastern coast of the United States or the northwestern and northeastern Gulf. Now, before we take a look at our reliable global computer models in today's video, here's a quick look at the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And as you can see here, this was newly updated just a couple of hours ago. And we can clearly see here from August 6th through the 12th, there is a chance of tropical development here off the mid-Atlantic, the southeastern United States, over the Bahamas, and even for portions of Cuba as well. This is included in today's thumbnail that I highlighted here as well. And then, of course, that's not all. As we go into the third week of August here, well, week 3, we should say, not the third week of August, you get the idea. From August 13th through August 19th, you can see there's an area here highlighted for potential tropical development. So all the way through the middle of August, there is a chance we do get a tropical storm, or if not, a higher end type of system that develops within this zone. And this is a 20%, so it's not very high, but it is highlighted here from the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook for both weeks. So with that being said, let's take a look now at our very latest detailed European model. And this is the 12Z output for this morning. And as we can clearly see here, this is a look at the 850 millibar vorticity plot from Tropical Tidbits. And we can see right here where our tropical wave is actually located. It is not very organized by any means. The vorticity is very well stretched out from northeast to southwest. And that's why the system is going to struggle a little bit. Along to go with that, we have a very strong, powerful easterly African jet that is blowing across the top of this wave. And you'll see that here when we take a look at our environmental forecast. So putting this into motion over the next couple of days, the wave does not develop at all. So we know pretty good at this point, very high confidence that the wave does not develop into a tropical depression or tropical storm at all whatsoever. And the GFS also indicates that, which we'll look at here in a second. But that does not mean that this is not going to be ignored. This is not going to develop down the line beyond the MDR. As we can see here, as we go into about 4 days, there is your tropical wave. And therefore, let's zoom in and see the areas that are impacted. So this includes for Puerto Rico, some of the U.S. British Virgin Islands, And there's the vorticity indicating where we have some showers and some thunderstorms. That is energy in the atmosphere that we need to be very conscious about. Now, putting this even forward into day 5, the wave struggles to develop and gets that is not able to materialize very well, but then it does try to briefly get its act together, only briefly, as we go into the 5th and the 6th of August. All right, and then beyond that, it just kind of goes away and it dissipates. So what about the extension forecast when we look beyond the 10-day forecast? And I don't like doing this very often, but given the aspect to all of this, because that area is highlighted, and you're probably wondering, why did the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook highlight that area when there's not really much of a signal on the euro? It's because of our second tropical wave that is going to be coming off of Africa. The first one is kind of an appetizer. So if you see it right here, this is kind of giving us a warning that the African monsoon is really picking up. The wave train is going to kick into high gear here. And that's just giving us a heads up that, watch out, I'm coming. The tropics are going to get active, right? And so our second wave here is a little bit more of a doozy as it moves across the Eastern Caribbean here. And that looks like it could have a closed circulation because of the closed contour here. So that's something to consider beyond the 10-day forecast. And then after that point, we will see what all ends up happening here. Now, I will use this in great cautionary aspects. There has been a lot of X posts on X on social media from last night's 0Z run showing that, oh my gosh, we have a major hurricane hitting Louisiana. The AI also picked up this, and also another tropical storm and another one and another one. All right, this is for number one reasons. This is only one global computer model deterministic forecast. All right, we're going to see extreme cases of this. It's going to go back and forth. All right. So please, I emphasize, do not take this seriously. This is 360 hours out. And I guarantee you right now, we are not going to see any major development in the Gulf as what I can see, or as far as I can see, through the middle of August. Nor are we going to see, well, this system could end up being the case here. That seems a little bit true. And we will see what ends up happening off of Africa. But long story short, the 0Z run, please ignore it. Do not take that seriously. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on it. I've seen a lot of X posts on social media that, oh my gosh, we have African wave train of madness coming. We have a major hurricane that's going to hit Louisiana. Please, that is 2 weeks out. Do not put any face value into the 0Z Euro model. Okay, please, for laughing out loud. Okay, and that's why I skip over that. And I'm looking at what I'm seeing here. And right now, it's a lot different than the 0Z run with, again, a tropical depression. It might form in the Caribbean as well. Not in the Caribbean, in the northwestern Bahamas. There we go. By the middle of August, we will see if that even comes to pass. Because as you do know, that matches what this graphic actually shows with that low chance of formation. Okay, and then maybe another wave after that. Let's take a look now at our Canadian model so we can move on forward here. Let's look at the Canadian. Let's see what your guys' reaction is. All right, so there is that weak tropical wave that moves across the southwestern Atlantic. That's the first one. That's the one that we see right now. It's not even highlighted from the NHC, by the way. And then this tries to develop eventually right before it heads into Florida. All right, so that's two models that are indicating the same thing in similar aspects, that this area right in here, I'm going to circle in this very carefully. This area right in here needs to be monitored closely for potential tropical development between the 5th of August through the 12th of August, with another wave coming off of Africa eventually. All right, and then we have additional waves, but they failed to actually get their act together. Now let's see the GFS model really quickly here, because the GFS does not indicate anything at all. And in fact, that wave really collapses. Really not much concern for the greater and lesser Antilles with that one in the next 5 days. That's good news because of the ridge to the north. That's going to lead to some deep layer vertical easterly shear and westerly shear. And then beyond that, in 10 days, nothing. Nothing whatsoever on the GFS. And the GFS has been quite conservative, to say the least, in the Euro and the AI models, showing literally berserkness in the tropics, especially on the 0Z run. We're not seeing that here on the GFS. And if we go even further out in time, still nothing to be concerned about all the way through at least the middle of August. That's through the 14th and the 15th of August, showing no tropical development whatsoever. Now, this does not mean we won't see tropical development, all right, because this is one model after all, but it does give us a clue that the background state is just not there yet. It's just not going to be conducive just yet, I believe, through at least the 13th through the 15th of August, perhaps. All right, now this matches with what Andy Hazelton said on X, as well as Eric Webb. I do follow these people very closely, and they even said the first half of August is going to be interestingly quiet relative to the MJO where it's headed into. So that is why I think the GFS may be onto something here with a very inactive period, but not to say that the Euro 2 could be more correct than the GFS, and the GFS is just lagging behind. Now, when we take a look at our environmental forecast on why the tropics in the Atlantic are struggling to get their act together, which, by the way, the Central Pacific right now is hyperactive with numerous areas to watch, with Iona as well as Kelly that are now named storms. I mean, this has just been a very, very busy hurricane season in the Eastern and Central Pacific thus far, with the Atlantic only seeing 3 named storms, completely the opposite of what we should be seeing with a La Nina. All right, and I'll show you why that is here after we get through our environmental forecast. So looking at the deep layer relative humidity plot here, all this brown indicates there is a lot of dry air, all right? We just don't have a favorable period. We are just not in that, and that's because we have a lot of anticyclonic wave breaking event that is ongoing. We have these ridges that are going up here, and they back all the way around like this, and they bring down a lot of dry, stable, sinking air out of higher latitudes. And as long as that remains in place, we are just not going to get tropical development. Even so, you have moisture down here that looks very juicy. It looks juicy now, doesn't mean it's actually going to develop. And that's because our models are strongly indicating that there will not be any development with this first wave, at least for the time being. So going out to 3 days, look at just how dry the atmosphere is. It's so dry with that wave. And that's why I would not even be surprised if we see very little rainfall with this wave as it passes over some of these islands of the Lesser and Greater Antilles, just because of how dry the background part of the atmosphere is. And look, it gets even drier. Look at this. This is just ridiculous. All of this brown here indicates stable, sinking, warm air aloft. And that is a lid. That is a capping inversion that prevents thunderstorm development out here in the MDR. Although there is moisture, there's just not enough of it. And this continues all the way into the 7-day forecast, and then eventually beyond that, look, it just is too dry out there. So there's a mixed signal here. Some models are negotiating that maybe there will be tropical development by the middle of August, but some models like the GFS that we're not seeing here do not show any development through the middle of August. So it's just kind of a win or lose situation at this point. Do we or don't we get any development out here? Another factor in all of this is the vertical wind shear as well. We still have some vertical wind shear to deal with as we put this into motion. You can see this ribbon right in here. This is our upper level tropospheric trough, or TUT. We have anticyclonic wave breaking, as you can see here, this flow doing this, and we have a trough that is barricaded here. And so as these waves move off of Africa, they run into this belt of southwesterly vertical wind shear. Nothing forms. Just nothing's going to survive that. And this remains the case all the way through the next 7 days, where we have this Tut-like future that remains in place. Now, beyond that, though, that breaks down eventually, and we start introducing more anticyclonic waves over the cyclonic waves moving off of Africa. So we have one right here, as you can see, that shear vector moving away from the system. We have more anticyclonic flow away from our area of interest off of Africa here. So that's something to actually consider. Okay, going forward, as we get past it about the 8th or the 9th, things should change in the Atlantic, and that looks to continue through the middle of August, at least from the European perspective. Now, with that being said, what do the 12Z ensembles tell us in today's video? Not much different than yesterday's video, although that second wave, we do need to watch it really closely. There are model members picking this up quite nicely. We will see if this trend does continue. Hence is why it is in my thumbnail today. So there will be two areas highlighted in my thumbnail, this area up here and this area down here. And that's because we are seeing some ensembles indicating the potential for some development here off the southeastern coast and Florida in the next 5 to 10 days, along to go with our secondary wave moving off of Africa that has some model support on it from the European forecasting system. Now, looking at the GEFS ensemble, while there are some members that do indicate some slight development over here in the Bahamas as well as off the eastern seaboard, there's just not much of an overall signal from the GEFS that second wave off of Africa will be able to develop into anything meaningful, which is good news. So that means there's a lot of disagreement between the European ensemble and the GEFS ensemble for that signal. Because of that, the National Hurricane Center does not expect any tropical development over the next 7 days. So as long as this remains a blank canvas, anything beyond 7 to 10 days is pretty much highly uncertain right now. And that means there's no risk for any tropical development here, any part of the Atlantic in the next week, which is good news. So if you're planning to go to the deep tropics for a vacation over the next 7 days, looks pretty good for the time being. However, it's a different case if you are in the Central Pacific when you're watching this, say from Hawaii, and like thinking, it's a good thing these systems are missing our area. That's because we have major hurricane Iona, we have tropical storm Kelly out there, and then of course we have additional areas to watch. We have East Pacific 98 that needs to be watched, and then we have East Pacific 99, and then eventually East Pacific 90 all over again for potential tropical development. At this given time, a major hurricane outbreak is ongoing right now, or I would say a tropical weather outbreak is ongoing in the Central and Eastern Pacific as we speak. So now the big question really remains and is on everybody's mind here, including myself, is when in the heck will the tropical Atlantic wake up with tropical activity? So with that being said, here's a look at our 200 millibar velocity potential anomaly, a Hov-Moeller diagram showing us which areas in the deep tropics will have favorable upward motion and a favorable environment for tropical development, and which areas will have a lot of sinking in the deep tropics, which is a suppression of thunderstorms. So with that being said, here's a look at the next 15 days from the European Ensemble Prediction System. And what we have here is a lot of green and blue colors that indicate there's going to be a lot of upward motion favored over Africa, over the Indian Ocean, beyond August 7th and the 8th. Roughly in this window, and I want to really make it clear, right in about, I would say in about here is when things should generally get more favorable for the Atlantic as I boxed in. That is this area down here in the thumbnail. That includes it MJO phases 1, 2, 3, and even parts of 4, while a lot of the sinking motion dominates Central and Eastern Pacific, where we don't have much in the way of development there. So it's going to be interesting. Will we get a rather busy August in the tropics? And the answer to that is it's very hard to say, but the looks of the GFS clearly tell us otherwise, that maybe the passing of this MJO may not allow enough instability to kickstart TC Genesis in the deep tropics of the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the southwestern Atlantic, or the Gulf. And that's a good thing. We do not want any named storms to impact anyone. For all we know, we can go with a very dead hurricane season, and a lot of people's lives will be saved because we're not having to deal with any landfalling systems. But unfortunately, it's probably not going to end up that way. And I believe we're going to have a very, very active, backloaded hurricane season. Probably August is going to end up being very quiet like we did last year and the year before that. Ever since 2022, things have just been very inactive. So now looking at the extended forecast here, this was updated just recently, and we can see all of this upward motion here favoring over the Indian Ocean and over the maritime continent. I mean, come on, all the way through early September and middle of September. If this actually verifies, we could have a very busy stretch here, not only from the middle of August, but possibly through the middle of September. Maybe it's not going to be so backloaded after all, and maybe we will see a lot of activity in the second half of August, stretching all the way through all of September and all of October, while there's a lot of sinking motion here favored over much of the Eastern Pacific. Now, you're probably looking at this and thinking that, but David, there's a lot of sinking motion over the Atlantic Basin. We have to understand that in general, when the MJO is in phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, sometimes 4, but mainly in this area of favorable environment, we generally get a lot of tropical activity that is favored over much of the Atlantic despite all this sinking motion. It is very hard to explain, but there is a lagmenting dilation between when there's rising motion that is over the Atlantic before it actually gets over the Indian Ocean, before we start actually seeing meaningful TC genesis. Now, I do want to be very clear and thorough with this graphic that I'm showing you here. This is climatology at work as of July 29th, 2025, and I want to be clear, we have not began the traditional ramp up with tropical activity yet. Historically speaking, we are still in the very inactive part of the Atlantic hurricane season. So if you all are like going witch hunting for tropical systems, like where are they? They haven't developed yet. We're still technically only in July. It's just late July instead of late June, but it is still July, the 7th month of the year. And we're not in August yet, technically speaking. And it's usually not until we get to the latter part of August when we begin that huge ramp up in tropical activity. So if we're dead through late August or early September and you're wondering, where are all the tropical cyclones at? I understand where you're coming from. It's because of a lot of stability problems if that actually ends up happening like we had the last couple of hurricane seasons. And it's just a matter of, will it happen this hurricane season? We don't know yet. We really don't. But the signals are there for a ramp up in tropical activity as we go into the middle to the end of August. Now, really quickly, I wanted to show you all the actual sea surface temperatures out there in the Atlantic. They continue to warm at a pretty good quick rate. Sea surface temperatures right now in the far northeastern Gulf are running now 32 degrees Celsius. That is around 89 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's concerning. That really is, because if we get any of these tropical waves, as you see here, that move into the Gulf and they turn up like this, or they move up like this along the eastern seaboard and they curve out like this, we could be seeing some big time cyclogenesis in the tropics. We really can, because thermodynamically, this is very favorable. The sea surface temperatures are very, very warm, more than warm enough to support intense, violent hurricane production like we saw with Milton, like we saw with past hurricanes that moved in this portion of the deep tropics of the Atlantic. So this is concerning. This really is when you think about it. Sea surface temperature anomalies are ridiculous off the mid-Atlantic coast. Take a look at this. Off the Carolina coast, off of Virginia, water temperatures are almost 3 degrees above the long-term average. I mean, my goodness, it is warm. And the deep tropics here are already warming up very quickly. We're slowly getting rid of what is left with that Atlantic Nina off of Africa. And the Caribbean is warming up still, along to go with the Gulf, still warming up as we go into very early August here. So I am really worried. I am. And you might call me fear mongering, you're hyping things up. I don't care at all. I really don't. This is serious, and we have to take things into consideration when we are looking at these tropical waves as they move off of Africa. Now, with that being said, if you did find today's tropical weather outlook and discussion very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. It really means a lot. We are now at 48,000 subscribers, only 2,000 subscribers away from 50,000. So again, if you have not subscribed yet, to show your diligent support, because once a tropical storm or hurricane forms closer to home where we're able to track it, we will be live streaming within 24 to 36 hours before a landfalling system, looking at live recon data, live cameras, live surface observations, radar, and much more. So again, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon to get all of my tropical updates, as I do upload as often as I can possible, which is every day. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you back here tomorrow with another tropical weather outlook and discussion.